I didn't expect anything from Hollowdeep. Maybe that's why it got under my skin the way it did. It's the kind of game you scroll past on Steam without thinking. Cheap, simple, wearing its PS1 inspirations openly. Almost daring you to underestimate it. And I did. Right up until I didn't. The first thing that struck me wasn't the combat or the visuals, it was the music. Slightly out of tune, like something wasn't sitting right beneath the surface. Not broken, not wrong, just unsettled. A quiet discomfort that followed me through the early areas. Humming in the background like a memory I couldn't place. And the deeper I went, the darker it grew. More melancholic, more deliberate, until eventually, in certain places, it faded entirely, leaving me alone with nothing but my footsteps and the low hum of the dungeon breathing around me. That's when I realized Hollowdeep wasn't pretending, it wasn't trying to impress me, it wasn't trying to be more than it could be, but it also wasn't apologizing for what it wanted to be. And that honesty, that raw, unpolished sincerity, is rare. Exploration here is simple, but not shallow. There's no map, no glowing waypoints, no UI screaming for attention. The game trusts you to look, to notice, to remember. Light becomes your guide, or the lack of it. A faint glow in the distance, a corridor swallowed in darkness, a torch flickering just enough to pull you forward. And when you do find something, it matters. Permanent stat boost, equipment, items that actually change how you play. Nothing wasted, nothing thrown in for padding. The puzzles are the same way. Light, quiet, almost shy. You don't need a PhD in Rubik's Cubes to solve them. You just need to care enough to explore. And when the world loops back on itself, when a door opens from the other side or a drop leads you into a familiar room, it feels earned. And then there's the combat. Simple, but surprisingly effective. There's no heavy attack, no elaborate combo, no build crafting spreadsheets. Just one swing, one timing window, one moment of commitment. You can use every weapon and every spell without investing in a specific build, which makes the whole system feel refreshingly honest. What you see is what you get. The parry mechanic ties it all together. A successful parry doesn't just stagger the enemy, it gives you health and mana back. It's not only an offensive defensive tool, but a survival mechanic. A way to push you just a little further. For some players, it even encourages a more aggressive reactive style. Fast, risky and rewarding in the same way Bloodborne's regain system pushes you forward instead of pulling you back. Of course, it's an indie game in every sense of the word. Enemies get stuck in walls, some can be circle-strafed until they quietly depixelerate into the game's soft RAM. The AI sometimes forget what dimension it's in, but none of that breaks the experience. If anything, it adds to it. The kind of jank that feels honest, like fingerprints left on clay. And as I kept ascending, something else became clear. Hollowdeep isn't difficult in the way people expect from anything with even a hint of Souls or Kingsfield in its DNA. The enemies aren't brutal, the bosses aren't towering skill checks, the game isn't trying to break you or test your patience. If anything, it feels almost gentle, not in tone, but in intention. It's strange, because the atmosphere suggests something harsher. The darkness, the silence, the PS1 roughness, the melancholic music, It all hints at a world that should be hostile, but the actual challenge is mild, almost understated. And that contrast works. It lets the atmosphere breathe. It lets the exploration matter. It lets the descent feel like a journey rather than an ordeal. The Metroidvania elements reinforce that feeling. Each new movement ability, the high jump, the dash, the double jump, the speed spell, doesn't make the game harder, it makes the world wider. It opens paths you didn't notice before, or couldn't reach, or simply didn't think to try. Backtracking becomes less about efficiency and more about curiosity. You start to see the dungeon not as a series of rooms, but as a place with its own quiet logic. And by the time you reach the deeper layers, when the music fades and the world grows still, you realize the game has been guiding you without ever raising its voice. Not through difficulty spikes or punishing encounters, but through atmosphere, movement, and a kind of quiet confidence in its own design. Hollowdeep never tries to overwhelm you. It never tries to impress you. It never tries to be something it isn't. But it does invite you, gently, persistently, to keep going, to push a little further, to see what's around the next corner, to descend just one more level. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes sincerity hits harder than spectacle. Sometimes a small game with rough edges and a beating heart can stay with you longer than something polished and grand. Hollowdeep did that for me, and even if one person watching this decides to give it a chance, maybe it'll do the same for them. So if you stayed with me this far, thank you for walking these shadows with me.